So I started getting harassed around the time of the royal wedding. The moment that people knew I disagreed with some things about my sisters.
I grew up as an only child, and I wished I had siblings.
It's like everything. It's lie upon lie upon lie.
Hello to all my gorgeous, good-looking friends. You are tuning into TRG's series covering the Markle vs.Markle defamation lawsuit. If you are new to the channel, welcome. For those who are returning, thank you for coming back and supporting my work. I'm always grateful to have this like-minded community to discuss the beloved royal family and the cultural impact of its members on society, particularly in America. Okay, before I get into this, let me just put the disclaimer, I am not a legal expert. I am simply just reading what's in the public court files and giving my interpretation and observations/opinions. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusion. My gorgeous, good-looking friends, we have an update. We last left off with Meghan's team filing a motion to add additional information to support getting this case dropped. That was due by May 29th. On May 25th, Meghan's lawyers filed a 6-page addition in support of her motion to dismiss. In this video, we're going to go through this document and present to you any information that could fill in some of these gaps that have been purposely left out. Okay, let's get into this. I think the biggest challenge that Samantha is going to have in this case and getting it to move forward is making sure that the judge fully understands Meghan's true behavior and the operation behind it, supporting her to keep her bad behavior hidden. The judge should understand how Meghan and Harry have weaponized the media, the very same media that Harry so claims to despise. So adding on to the motion to dismiss, Meghan's lawyers begin this defendant Meghan, and I, of course, crossed out the Duchess of Sussex because there's no such thing in the United States, so we'll just refer to her as Meghan Markle. One thing to note in efforts to not confuse the audience is that whenever I'm referencing anything highlighted in blue, know that it came from Meghan Markle's team. Anything that's highlighted in yellow and being referenced, know that those documents came from Samantha's team. So currently we're looking at the most recent document that was filed by Meghan's team. So once again, Meghan's lawyers begin with the 4 statements that were made in the Oprah interview. Let me quickly remind everyone that those 4 statements were: 1, Meghan said that she didn't know Samantha, that she was an only child, she hadn't seen her in 18 years, and that she changed her surname back to Markle when she started to date Prince Harry. So going back to Meghan's lawyers trying to break the nexus between these 4 statements is that they're saying that Samantha admitted that the first 2 statements, that Samantha did not know her and that Meghan was an only child, on their own separately may be opinions. And the third, which is the amount of time that was left, so whether it be 18 years, but wasn't really 18 years, it was 13 years, is incorrect. So they're claiming that the difference between 13 years and 18 years is the epitome of a statement protected by the substantial truth doctrine. So what exactly is the substantial truth doctrine? So the substantial truth doctrine is a legal principle applied in defamation cases that recognize that minor inaccuracies or errors in a statement may not invalidate a defamation claim if the statement as a whole conveys the same essential meaning or substance of the truth, aka gist. Under the substantial truth doctrine, a statement can be considered substantially true if the overall gist or core message of the statement is true, even if there are some minor factual inaccuracies or errors in the specific details. This doctrine, it actually aims to prevent defamation claims from being dismissed based on immaterial or trivial discrepancies. But as you can see here, they're trying to use it in order to get it dismissed. With this situation, they're saying, well, 13 years versus 18 years, potato, you get the gist. It was a long time. So that's the point that they're trying to make. Now, is it true that Samantha hadn't seen her sister in 13 years as opposed to 18 years? That's something she's going to have to prove, in court and justify it. Like if she hasn't physically seen her because of her disability, but maybe talked to her on the phone, which I believe that was not 13 or 18 years, then that gist could also be applied to where Samantha could say, well, I talked to her in 2016 or the end of 2015. We were still in contact. She didn't have to physically see her, but she was in contact. Let's not forget that Samantha is in a wheelchair and she can't really travel to visit Megan as much as she would have liked to. And Megan, too selfish to make some time for her sister, didn't bother to go see her. So they did have contact with each other via the phone. So I would consider that, if we're going to use the substantial truth doctrine, that yeah, Megan can't really say that she didn't know Samantha if she was talking to her as of 2015. So based on the logic that Megan's lawyers want the judge to believe is that Samantha tried to salvage statements 1 through 3 by arguing that they were context for the fourth and most damaging statement, which was that Samantha had changed her name back to Markle after she started dating Prince Harry. So now here is a point where Megan's lawyers all of a sudden want to get technical. Before, they were all about getting to the gist of things, but they're saying that because Samantha did change her name when Megan started dating Harry, none of the 4 statements are actionable. So Samantha had argued that there was no uncertainty that she did not change her name at the time that Megan started to date Prince Harry. Verbatim, Megan says she changed her name back to Markle. I think she was in her early 50s. And then she stresses, only when I started dating Prince Harry. Now that word only means that there's only one possible reason why she changed her name back to Markle. Only when she started to date Prince Harry, giving us the impression that Samantha changed her name because the only reason, the one reason, is because she was starting to date Prince Harry. I love how Megan's lawyers decide to ignore this one word, being that they're so fancy with their words, and choose to pick out certain details and be technical when they want to be. But the word only is an adverb that is used to indicate exclusivity or limitation. And in this case, the word only is used to indicate a trigger that caused the name change. The interpretation of the way that Megan said this, without the sentence, I think she was in her early 50s, is irrelevant, has no bearing on the interpretation of the message that Megan wanted to convey. She referred to Samantha changing her name back to Markle at a particular point in time. But the change occurred specifically when Megan started to date Harry. The implication, understood by any 5th grader, is that the name change was not a coincidence, but was motivated and influenced by Megan's relationship with Prince Harry. The word only really emphasizes the significance of the fact that Megan was dating Prince Harry, and that was the catalyst for Samantha changing her name back to Markle. I really hope that the judge can see past a lot of this distraction and deflection, because that's exactly what it is. A lot of fancy words and confusion going back and forth between the various documents. I also sense that there's a level of psychology and manipulation being used by Megan's lawyers to position Samantha in a certain light. And here is a clear example. They made a point to re-emphasize a point that they keep saying. They mentioned it in the hearing that they had back in February. They're mentioning it again in the motion to dismiss, and now they're putting it into this additional documentation about Samantha's name being Rasmussen 2 months prior to the relationship of Megan and Harry became public. There were other examples that they could have shown, but they chose this one because it's the least flattering for Samantha. And it came up actually in the court hearing, in which the judge clarified with Megan's lawyers the purpose of the documents. So Michael Kump, Megan's lawyer, says, these are both from the state courts of New Mexico, and they show that the plaintiff, Samantha, was using a different name both in 2003 and then also in 2016. He's submitting these documents, and the judge says at the bottom, it says, with regard to your request, you're simply asking the court to judicially notice the dockets in those two cases. You're not asking that I judicially notice any of the adjudicative facts included in that docket or in those orders. Is that right? And Mr. Combs says, that is correct, Your Honor. But I'm sure if psychology dictates anything, you're going to be curious naturally. And off the record, you don't think that the judge is not going to check out the other cases to see what they're about? There were so many other examples he could have used, but he chose this one because it doesn't put Samantha in the best light. At the end of the day, Samantha had the right to do whatever she wants with her last name. But Megan used that in order to build upon this narrative of her sister being an opportunist, which, continuing on along the lines of this substantial truth doctrine that Samantha is arguing, does not apply to Megan because her statements were very to the point, did not leave any room to assume anything else. So when you're looking at Megan's world, you have to take everything and flip it opposite. So this substantial truth doctrine, flip it and call it the substantial lies doctrine, because essentially what she has been doing is telling her truth and getting people to get the gist of what she's trying to say, whether it be racism, whether it be Samantha's an opportunist. But this is how Megan operates in order to keep her hands clean. She does this so she cannot be held accountable for anything. And clearly, as we've seen in many instances, Megan has manipulated the public into thinking one thing when it's really something else. So Megan's lawyers argue that Samantha failed to invoke this mixed opinion doctrine over the substantial truth doctrine. So the mixed opinion doctrine states a statement of the speaker's opinion that is not accompanied by facts, but which the recipient of the communication may infer as being factual, meaning the person who's receiving the message is taking it in and believing whatever is being said. So Megan's lawyers are doing their best to deflect away from that concept. And they're sticking with the substantial truth because they're going off of the fact that the timing of the name change is what is the truth here of Megan's statement. Thus, there's no claim. Nice try, Michael Kump, but that falls flat because Megan used the word only. And this is what Samantha said in her document. Construing Megan's statements in their totality, not merely a particular phrase or sentence, but examining all of the words cited in the Third Amendment complaint. And the context in which the statements were made shows the statements were defamatory. The statements in the Oprah interview, taken as a whole, are not pure opinion, but those of mixed opinion. So for anyone who had watched that segment, would have walked away, rightfully so, thinking that Samantha Markle was a lunatic, especially since Megan, at the time, people didn't know that she was a liar. So Megan's coming out and saying, I don't know Samantha Markle. I hadn't seen her in 18, 19 years. I grew up as an only child, never saw her growing up. Yeah, so then to throw on the final statement of saying that she changed her name back to Markle only after she started dating Prince Harry, yeah, was the nail in the coffin to hurt Samantha's book. Let's remember that Samantha was releasing her book in which this little segment that Megan did with Oprah totally discredited or attempted to discredit anything that Samantha said about her family, because why would anybody take Samantha's word now if Megan is stating that she was never around or involved in her life? So yes, totally discrediting and trying to sabotage her from selling her books. And that's exactly what went on here. And here is an example of Megan proving her messaging to be effective in defaming her sister. Here we have Entertainment Tonight in Canada. This is a broadcast that traditionally promotes and pushes the Sussex propaganda. But here we have these two ladies reinforcing everything that Samantha has said as far as how she had been portrayed and the conclusion that these people came to about Samantha because of what Megan said.
But, it was made clear in the Oprah Winfrey interview.
Right off the bat, there seems to be no misunderstanding. She says Megan made it clear in the Oprah interview.
Meghan Markle said, basically I've been estranged for, 18 to 19 years. I saw her once, and then it was 10 years before that. So this is a woman who's not been a part of Meghan's life for years and years and years. But she definitely said in that interview, in her 50s, Samantha changed her name back to Markle when she started dating Harry. And basically that says it all.
It does.
It says so much. So if it hurt her autobiography, maybe because people weren't as interested in reading it.
And there you go. Why would anyone want to read a book by a woman who claims that she had a relationship with her sister when her own sister came out and said she doesn't know her? You would think, why would I waste money on buying a book where I believe that this woman would be lying? Because Megan came out and said she doesn't know her. She has no business talking about me, right? So there you go, guys. This is a clear example of what Megan was trying to do. She had the public believing that there was no relationship and no business of Samantha to be talking about me because she doesn't know me and I don't know her. And to me, I think that was defamatory.
So isn't the auto also about Megan, most likely, that she's talking about her?
the
So she
whole
could
thing
countersue
was about
her
it,
now if she were just
probably.
to let that book come out. For her sister to go after her, or it's just, I think it's completely wrong. And this book thing, I don't even understand where it's coming from, but it's not fun.
So Vanessa's saying Smith Markle needs to just shut it, basically.
I can't believe that they read that comment out loud, because essentially you're having this broadcast endorse telling Samantha to shut up. And quite frankly, that's wrong. But that's exactly what Meghan has been doing to all her critics. Anybody who speaks out against Meghan and Harry do their very best to censor them and shut them down. Now, when you think about it, Meghan and Harry have violated many Americans' First Amendment rights with the people that they have hired to go after others in order to dox, intimidate, instill fear, as well as to commit crimes on their behalf. We all know this. We see the receipts. We have the receipts. And at some point, this is going to bubble up, where I wouldn't be surprised if the next lawsuit that comes their way is the people of the United States versus Meghan and Harry. Going back to that hearing in February, Meghan's lawyer made it a point to back Meghan and state that now the right to voice opinions, to comment on things, to even criticize are all fundamental rights that are guaranteed by the First Amendment. Hear that? To comment on things, to even criticize, all of those are rights that are guaranteed under the First Amendment. So for Meghan and Harry to deliberately undermine that right needs to come out. And I think that Samantha has the opportunity to expose this and let the judge see what these two are really about.
We're talking about an estranged person, and there's a share of blood, okay, but...
Now, as you can see, left-wing mainstream media supporting Meghan Markle's narrative, which they have been supporting her and pushing her propaganda, was not only Entertainment Tonight that was going along with this narrative. You had Access Hollywood, you had NBC, you had all the publications that normally push out these puff pieces for Meghan jump on board to talk about how baseless, even the lawyer had quoted in Us Weekly, that this lawsuit was. And they were pushing, and I want to say that I believe that she believed Meghan and believed that Samantha Markle was estranged from her, just based off of reiterating all the bullet points that Meghan wanted everybody to feed into and believe as a result of making those defamatory statements. And here's where Samantha proves the mixed opinion doctrine.
This isn't someone who's been a part of her life.
It could be interesting to see if Samantha went the other way, where she went to Meghan and said, I'm sorry.
And that's the thing. Meghan chose not to disclose the fact that Samantha had made several attempts to reach out to Meghan to talk to her about what is happening in the media, as well as get an idea as what she should do or not do. But Meghan chose to completely write Samantha and even her father completely off. This woman appears to not understand that that attempt was already made, and it was Meghan who chose not to respond, but instead coordinated a whole campaign around attacking her.
Potentially become.
Right.
Right?
I think that would have changed everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
so maybe she still has a chance to do that.
This entire drama could have all been avoided from the very beginning. So that essentially was Meghan's additional supporting comments regarding the statements around Oprah and trying to get that thrown out. So then they move into doing the same exact thing with the Netflix statements. And here they begin talking about Samantha's arguments in Netflix are just more of the same that she did with Oprah, being that they're not actionable. So Meghan's lawyers argue that Samantha's pretty much making the same arguments when it comes to the Netflix statements as she had done with the Oprah statements. Now, Meghan's lawyers start to break this down into a molecular level to where you're separating and breaking the nexus of various points when he very well knows that combined together and all the cogs in the Sussex PR machine executing on their specific roles. So yeah, Meghan, with the help of her husband, operated with malice in order to squash her sister. Now, I'm surprised that Meghan's lawyers were sloppy in trying to make this point about Samantha denying that she told people that she raised Meghan for 12 years. He cites, as it says here, docket 75 at page 4, number 2 footnote, all of these articles that he has listed here. If he had done his due diligence, he would recognize that Samantha never said those words. None of those articles have it in quotes or came from the original source. They don't even have the original source as to where that was said. And I think that that's poor form on the lawyer's part for not doing his due diligence and getting to the source of it before he puts it in writing to say that Samantha said these things. So where did this come from? That so many newspapers have replicated claiming that Samantha claimed that she raised Meghan for 12 years. Now, I believe Samantha that those exact words never came out of her mouth to a journalist. So how did this come to be? Well, in the Netflix documentary, Meghan refers to this article dated March 5th, 2021. And in that article, it stated verbatim that in the past, Samantha has claimed to have raised Meghan for 12 years when she was growing up in California. If you notice, there's no quotes around it. So we don't know where they got that information, but they printed it. So Meghan's lawyers have this article cited in the footnotes that on November 27, 2017, this is where it says, the 36-year-old is estranged from her older half-sister Samantha Grant, who claims to have raised Meghan for 12 years growing up in California. Once again, there's no quotes around it. We don't know that this was a direct comment that Samantha made to the Sun, but according to Samantha, the only other article or interview that she did with the Sun was mentioned in the book she wrote. According to Samantha's book, The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister, it appears that this was the first interview that she did with the Sun, in which it was titled Princess Pushy. And there was no mention of speaking to any other journalist when the news broke. It says on page 213, the beginning of chapter 33, titled The Queen Would Be Appalled, she begins and says, I had a whirlwind day because sitting in a wheelchair all day is tiring and I feel like I had just climbed Mount Everest. Mark was putting some things in the dresser and I was sitting near the bed in my wheelchair as the phone rang. I expected the phone to be ringing off the wall, but I didn't feel like answering it because I was so tired. We made the mistake of answering the phone. It immediately opened into speakerphone mode. A soft-spoken British journalist was on the other end asking a few questions, and I agreed to speak, thinking it was just a casual conversation. He began asking questions about our family, and my sister's tenacity. I said, well, of course she's driven and worked hard to get to the top. He said, would you say that she's pushy? I said, I don't know about that. I guess as a woman, we do push. We push through the glass ceiling. We push our way to the top. Sure, I guess that's pushy, if that's what you'll call it. I remembered all of her boisterous moments in the past, and I knew she could be very pushy, but I didn't want to tell that to the journalist. I thought that by saying that, I was giving her a boost in terms of being a go-getter, and that maybe that's what the royal family wanted to hear. So I went along with it. So Samantha goes into talking about how she felt that this journalist was giving her leading questions, and before she knew it, the headline of Princess Pushy went viral, and till to this day, we're still hearing about it. So I went back to this article because I know that Samantha talked about how misquoted and how duped she felt by the naivety with this journalist and what he would write. This journalist had ended up writing some of the most damaging things that I think that has been following Samantha around since the beginning, calling Meghan a social climber and that she had a soft spot for gingers. So I went back to this article to read it properly to see if the origins of Samantha claiming that she raised Meghan for 12 years would be found here. So as I go through it, there's no mention of Samantha saying that she had raised Meghan for 12 years, and anything that was stated, they quoted it to indicate that this is exactly what Samantha had said verbatim. But it was this part that caught my attention. If you look at the fourth paragraph down, it says, Radar Online reported that both Samantha and her father have been hurt by Ms. Markle's lack of emotional and financial support since she became famous. Now, this article was posted on November 1st, 2016. Remember, guys, the news broke on October 30th, 2016. I thought this was the only interview that she did. Apparently not. So according to Radar Online, they apparently were the first ones to get to Samantha. This is a U.S. gossip site, like TMZ, that breaks celebrity news. This is what the article said, dated November 1st, 2016, timestamped at 2:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Prince Harry's new romance is already doomed. The royal's girlfriend, Meghan Markle's bitter family, has threatened to tear the new pair apart. RadarOnline.com can exclusively reveal. The sister of 35-year-old Suits actress and possible future princess confirmed the secret relationship to Radar, but warned that the prince, 32, could break things off when she reveals her bombshell story. Samantha Grant claimed to have raised Meghan for 12 years growing up in California, boasting a family album of childhood pictures as proof. Now, wheelchair-bound and living in Florida, Grant, 51, accused Markle of not being the humanitarian she makes herself out to be. Quotes, the royal family would be appalled by what she's done to her own family, unquote. Grant told Radar. The truth would kill her relationship with Prince Harry. He wouldn't want to date her anymore because it puts her in a bad public light, end quote. I certainly don't think Harry or his family would want to associate with her afterwards, end quote. Slammed Grant, a successful writer in the arts industry. Markle and Grant's father, Tom, who filed bankruptcy in June, and his older daughter are hurt by the superstar's lack of emotional and financial support, sources said. So there you have it. This is the very beginning as to where this rumor started. Now, as it says here, Samantha Grant claimed to have raised Meghan for 12 years growing up in California, boasting a family album of childhood pictures as proof. Now, do we know if that was actually said by Samantha? It does appear that Samantha did speak to Radar Online because they have her in quotes and they're saying that she directly spoke to them. And this article was published before the Princess Pushy article was published that went viral all around the world. I don't know. If I were Samantha, I would get aligned with Radar Online to make sure that if indeed she did say something of the sort, that it's cleared up before Meghan gets to Radar Online and pays somebody off to then admit or lie under testimony. You never know how these people do. I mean, Meghan can lie to the courts in the UK. I'm sure she could give money to somebody in order to lie again to the courts in the United States. So if I were Samantha, I would make sure that this situation is clarified because you don't want it to come back and it be used against her, because this could totally obliterate Samantha in stating that she did say something, but she didn't. Now, I think what happened here is that maybe Samantha talked to Radar Online and alluded to that. And the journalists gave or had the gist, right? We're talking about the gist, and wrote that down as how he interpreted based off of the conversation that he was having with Samantha. As you can see, it's not in quotes. So they can't say that Samantha directly said that she raised Meghan for 12 years. They can't. There's nowhere aside from here being the starting point to where this statement came from. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to allow you guys to read the last 2 pages of the other elements that are being contested. But as you read it, just listen to the background of what was being said in the Netflix mockumentary.
Sentinel has looked at everything from QAnon to MAGA to COVID disinformation to climate change disinformation. We've never seen anything quite like this. We looked at 114,000 tweets, and we were able to then determine that 70% of the hateful content came from just 83 accounts, and they had a reach of 17 million people. So this is not your everyday trolling. They were coordinating and talking about what they would discuss for that particular day or week, what pictures they should disseminate. They were actively recruiting people, telling people how to create multiple accounts, how to use VPNs, virtual private networks, to hide the IP so they don't get suspended. And it was done by people who were just not the typical quote unquote trolls. These are housewives, these are middle-aged Caucasian women creating just constant attacks from go back to America to basically, why don't you die? For the main hate accounts. Their primary motive is monetizing this stuff. But these secondary accounts, it's about hatred. It's about, race. Samantha Markle was part of the group that was putting out a lot of this disinformation. Samantha had her account suspended, and then we actually sent Twitter a list because she had like 11 additional accounts. And we were baffled by this. How can the half-sister of Meghan be part of a hate group?
Even though Twitter came out and said there was evidence of no coordinated campaign, they were still running with this narrative because that was what they were pushing. So what do you guys think? I don't know if Samantha will have the opportunity to give an opposition filing to answer this document, but if she does, I think now is the time to bust out those receipts and show the judge that this is a little more complex than on the surface of Samantha changing her name back to Markle as a result of Meghan dating Prince Harry. I think the judge needs to see the attempts that Meghan and Harry have been making in order to interfere with our government and interfere with American civil freedoms and the freedom to speak, the freedom to have opinion, the freedom to express. All of that has been violated by what Meghan and her goons have been doing. Anyhow, leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Now, when you plant a seed that is so hateful, what it can grow into, I mean, just